Guys, first things first, the In Rainbows album, right? What was the most difficult part of doing it yourself, the DIY aspect of it?
Getting the wording right on the website was quite tricky.
That was interesting.
I know that might sound a bit superficial, but actually how to get it across to people that this was a, you know, you're making a donation, we're asking how you word it without sounding pompous or irrelevant or irreverent, rather.
Or irrelevant.
Or irrelevant. That was pretty tricky.
And you had no real idea of the consequences at all. You had no idea how it was going to work out because it was a brand new model, if you think about it. People hadn't really done this before, certainly not on your level. So was it an exciting thing saying, let's throw it out there and see what happens?
Oh, it was certainly exciting. It was, yeah, because there was a few meetings that we, were sitting down and just finished doing the record, had it in a box, wanted to put it up and just, yeah, free of all the mechanics, all the drudgery of the whole thing, having not basically talked to anybody, done any interviews, any explanation, and nothing. So basically nobody knew outside the camp,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the most exciting things we've ever done, I think, actually.
Yeah, of course, it's one of the most exciting things any band has ever done. But is it fair to say that you had finished the album, it was recorded, ready to go, you possibly would have released it through EMI or whatever, till your managers came up with the idea more than maybe you did? And then you went, hey, that's a pretty good idea, let's try it.
We hadn't re-signed with EMI. We had a sort of dialogue going about what kind of record are we making, how are we going to release it, who are we going to go, where is it applicable? And then in about April of last year, they came and said, listen, we've got this idea, and...
But, a lot of it was informed by the leaking thing.
Yeah.
Right, previous albums of yours had been leaked on the net.
Everything, even my record, everything had been leaked. And part of that was down to the mass production element of things.
Yeah.
By the time it gets to the vinyl plant, or it doesn't matter what you do, some bugger's going to put it up on the net and go and think they're really clever. So the idea was just to say, well, nobody gets it at all, as an experiment.
And when you finish a record, you've got this 3-month lead time that everything, all the parts have to get in place, and it's so frustrating. It's not you're holding. You've got it's just you finish this record. You want people to hear it, and then it's like another quarter of a year. Can be half a year almost.
And also the other thing that really gets my goat is that because of the nature of journalists don't get paid much anymore. The budgets are cut in magazines and so on. So what tends to happen? You have the first 2 or 3 reviews come out, whoever wrote them first. And then get cut and pasted and repeated and repeated and repeated. And that winds me up, something chronic. So it was a good way of sort of saying, well, everybody gets to make up their mind at once.
When it came out, you had a good 8 or 10 weeks for people to do whatever it is they wanted to do to get the album. But then it came out in physical form. It did go in physical form to #1 in the US and the UK. Was there any element of thinking about that beforehand, of, gosh, how's this going to work out? Or was there any element of, now there's the result? Imagine, we gave it away 10 weeks for free, we gave it away 10 weeks, and we still, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it was a complete result.
It was bonkers.
We could not believe it.
I kept ringing everybody up going, you should, because there was some huge release in the US that week, and whoever their manager was went ballistic when they found out.
Clive Davis.
That's it, Clive Davis. Went ballistic when he found out we'd beat them.
No, but he went ballistic when he found out that an album that had been available for free for 10 weeks.
He demanded a recount.
Yeah.
Yeah, he demanded a recount.
Just like truly political, truly democratic stuff.
It's amazing.
But you see, he demanded a recount. Somebody who's been in the business for 400 years and has been at the very top for those 400 years.
Yeah.
Do you think that the industry that he's been on top of for those 400 years is more or less collapsing? And are you the one who took the last card?
It's only kept itself going the last 10 years by repackaging everything it already had.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
And selling it for 15 quid.
Yeah. And the great thing about this, what we were doing compared to the industry, is the industry has become all about money. Yeah. It's maximising income. That's why they like the old economic model, because they sold loads of CDs, everybody's happy. The great thing about this was, and the reason we've been sort of, people have slagged us off within the industry as well, they don't like it because this wasn't about the money. This was about the spirit of the thing. And that's why it was so exciting, the spirit of the thing. And kind of, obviously we hope to make money out of it, but it's not about being greedy, and that's the thing. And it's getting that whole thing about what's exciting about music. It's the spirit.
There's other elements to it. It was a unique position to be in at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what we're going to do is a the next party trick? No idea. But that kind of wasn't the point, so who cares?
You were a big band and you were leaving your labels, or you were possibly leaving your labels. So.
We saw a cliff and we wanted to jump.
Exactly, yeah.
But it also, to us, reminded us very much of the sort of, you know, the 60s, 70s, all the books that well, I haven't read that many, but he has. You know, all the bits of how out there the music industry used to be, like complete sort of nonsense, chaos, like, you know, drug-taking maniacs with too much money and no idea what they were doing, just... But into whatever music they were pursuing at the time, you know.
Okay, but you're saying like...
But now, whereas now, you know, like someone like EMI is now run by someone who, I don't know, is a venture capitalist or whatever. It's a very rational, rationalised sort of, this is a product, this is, you know, no one is thinking, oh, we're going to change the world with this, we're going to affect people's emotions. It's like, no, it's not about that.
But do you think that if by empowering the consumer, which is what this thing did, that you humanised Radiohead a bit more as well, and you realised, this is great what we did. We didn't necessarily realise what we were doing. We knew it was quite a good thing. This is a really good thing.
How do you mean humanised?
Well, let's put it this way. The definition of like, okay, there was a million articles written about what you did in all the weirdest magazines and all the strangest places. Your name cropped up in places that had never cropped up in before, right? One of them would be in kind of like, how much is a piece of art kind of worth type articles. Like, you know, maybe it's not worth, just put the art out there because it reflects the society from which it came and all these kind of definitions, and let's see what happens. Now, I'm not saying that that was some great idea that you had that you wanted to do, but that's how it resulted to some people. Said, this is a great thing that these guys are doing. And what you did was, you made the consumer feel as though they were part of something you were, without necessarily having to be a corporate whore, if you like, by going into a record shop and helping Clive Davis make loads of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
you do?
Yeah, I know. I mean, well, the thing is, the way you started out is that one of the big things for me when I left college was that whatever work the band was doing would stay within public consciousness as much as possibly could be. Like all the artists I admired at the time when I left college. Regardless of where their work ended up, like Rothko, for example, the power of it is impacted on general sort of public consciousness permanently, you know, and it's not exactly a pop art thing, but I've always had a real problem with the art world, the elitism of the art world, and the idea of the collector and the idea of the increased value and all these people like that come along with it. And the record business has that same element to it, where once an artist is successful, they are dealt with in a different way, and all these mechanics come into play and stuff. And I mean, there was this really bizarre moment at the end of OK Computer where, you know, no harm done or whatever, but it was me and Stanley found it highly amusing. They did this sort of survey about who they could target the record at. Once that they'd sold X many millions, they had this target market thing where they tried to establish who they could target OK Computer at next. And we became obsessed about it and managed to get hold of the marketing research and used it as artwork for something, can't remember what now. Because we just thought, this is utterly absurd. This is like, you know... Anyway.
But that's what they do, consumer products.
No, I know. I know. I've never really got my head around that because if you talk to any of the artists concerned, they would be like,
But look at the changes you've made on the journey in just a bunch of albums. It's not like Dylan, you've released 56 albums or something. It's 6 or 7 or 8 albums. Yeah. The point is that, like, after the Bends, you didn't bring out the Bends 2. After OK Computer, you didn't bring out OK Computer 2. So you did the Kid A thing, you did the Amnesiac, which, like, blew a lot of people out of the water going, what's all this about? Loads came with you dropped some off, some new people came in, etc. But the point is, you went to Paris and you went to Copenhagen before Kid A to sort of spend a bit of time to think about what we're going to do next. You talked about, now hold on a second now, maybe a change, but not that much of a change, and you talked about, you know, tunes are dead, rhythm is everything. Now, if he
I still think that, actually.
Okay, so if he was thinking that, were you saying, wait a minute, Thom, and did that lead to some friction saying, right, I'm out of here? I mean, there must have been fights of some sort. I'm not saying fisticuffs, but...
no,
were you annoyed at the fact that he wanted to go too far? And let's face it, no. Kid A is 1 billion miles from OK Computer.
Because, no.
Well, it's your average, then, Rock's fan, OK?
No. I mean, I think looking back on it, you know, where it comes in is probably self-doubt. It's more, well, where do I play a part in this? If we're not playing guitars, I play, you know, it probably starts off from there. But it wasn't really, it was, you know, the uncertainties that come with doing something new. And Thom had a very specific idea about when no, it wasn't. It was right at the time because we needed to, you know, do something completely different. And the fact that he came in with that was very stimulating. But it was also, it's like anything. You're out of the safety. You know, you're out of the safety zone.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do I play a part in this? And once you find your way in, and everybody's sort of, you know, you want to feel like you're working as a band. That's the thing, you know. And once you find that, it works.
I mean, I think what you're driving at is that, will this always be the sort of tortuous thing? I think we've actually sort of said that it can't be to each other.
Yeah.
And we're not quite sure what that means yet. But, I mean, maybe it means that, you know, we just put out one tune, or rather than, you see, the big, as you say, the big, like, shift that you have to make between one record to the next record and so on, that's a tough thing to carry on doing. And it's also, ultimately, it's very destructive. Right. And it would be nice if there was a bit more fun involved.
Yeah. But at the same time, is it fun being in Radiohead at the moment?
Yeah.
It sounds like it is.
It's not bad.
OK, his lyrics, have they changed and got more personal, do you think, Ed, in the last while? Since maybe Hail to the Thief to solo album to now?
The first thing that I noticed when we were rehearsing, when we started rehearsing for this record, was that I think that after about an hour we played House of Cards, and he sang the opening line, and it was just like, yes, you know, yeah, definitely, you know. And I think I noticed that as well on the Eraser, the vocals. Are
you saying because that could have been a pop song, I got to be your friend, I want to be your lover thing, that could almost be like, well, that could be in the charts at number one by a pop artist?
No. It's not about that. It's probably a very selfish thing. It's something that I can relate to. It's like a lyric that's personal. I mean, I loved. You know, we were all on the political tip. Hail to the Thief.
Yeah.
You know, I was right behind you, but I think it's like anything. Like you get back to certain other things, and the thing that I loved about Thom's lyrics on this record, and the things that it started coming out, was that these are perennial human emotions. These are things that we all feel, and you know, ultimately for me, I sort of lost my way in music and came back, and I realised what music is about. It's about a great song, a great vocal that you're moved by, some music that backs it up, but it's communicating an emotion, really.
Could Kid A and Amnesiac, could it have been the Radiohead double album? Could it have been all 23 tracks?
Yeah, but whether we were ready to be that bold then and release a double album, I think that required, you know, you've got to have a lot of confidence, and I think
it would have watered everything down. On Kid A, certainly.
That's right, and certainly the impact of there's a great story that one of our managers, Bryce, says that when they first played it to the publishing company, and we just re-signed with them, and they're expecting, like, you know, guitars, and so, you know, the first song, Everything's the Right Place, not a guitar. The second song, Kid A, not a guitar. The third song, National Anthem, not a guitar. And they're literally sweating, you know. The impact of the record was that much great. And this, again, it's what we were trying to do on this record, In Rainbows. I think that record's like 40 minutes long. It's a good slab of music. It's a good time to listen to something.
So did you have to be one around? Like, there's 3 songs on Kid A with guitars on them. If I said that to you 6 months before the album was released, would you be like, oh my God, I can't do this?
No, because what happened is that it's a process. What happened on Kid A was the process of everything breaking down over time. So what we basically did...
I'm good at that.
We reduced everything to a pile of rubble and ashes. And the first thing that came out, and it was about, we were in this... So we'd been doing this for 6 months, and we were in this big old house in the middle of the Gloucestershire countryside. And Thom did Everything in Its Right Place with Nigel, and it was like, wow, you know. And that was the first thing, and the rest of us weren't involved with that, in the recording of that. And it was just like, well, that's beautiful. So, you know, you kind of you shed all that stuff.
But the weird thing is that, of course, you do that, and that then you go back to what you've got, and you realise you've actually got already 3/4 of the way down, and you didn't realise. You just need like a linchpin thing. which sort of brings everyone into focus, and they go, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I get it. Like with this record, it was videotape, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Hail to the Thief album, getting on to the next one, is, you know, a political album, not a protest album, and the music is very joyful? I think the music's very up.
Yeah, I don't know.
But protest
I'm too close to that one.
Is protest? You're too close to it, really.
Still,
yeah. In what the album is saying, in what you say.
No,
in the album.
well, no. I never had a problem with. Sorry, I never had a problem with the political bit. Really, my favourite one was always Gloaming because.
Which you were going to call the album, or wanted to, for at least 5 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, 10 actually. Probably should have done actually, but there you go. Hey ho, what do you know?
Did you dislike being the front man at any stage at all of the band?
Me?
Yeah. Well,
Dislike it?
for the
Surely
show,
not.
you went
I
along-
love that little attention. Abuse at railway stations, it's brilliant.
Really?
Yes, it's fantastic, I love it.
Are you a rock star, Thom? Or is this Radiohead a very famous rock band?
Well, I was having that conversation with my daughter yesterday, who's 3, because her and her brother were arguing between whether I was a pop star or a rock star.
What's the result?
Well, I would have to verge toward the rock star because, as Noah said, if you're a pop star, you have to do all this weird stuff. It's that's not Daddy. Daddy wouldn't do that.
No.
So, good lad.
Are you a difficult person to live with when you're making an album? And are you an okay person to live with? when you're
I'm
making an album?
appalling.
No, I'm not a good person to live with. No.
I mean,
I don't think any of us are.
Given the choices, our families would much prefer we never worked again.
With each other.
Absolutely.
But does the process ever get easier, or would that be failure?
I think you know
Well,
what?
that's what we need to sort.
Yeah, we need to sort out. I mean, part of the problem the last 2.5 years, or the album that took 2.5 years, it was very difficult, and we did go to some fairly dark places, and we don't really want to go back there. But I think there's a recognition that if you're going to do, it's like anything in life. If you can do something that's really good, it's going to get tough sometimes. And I think we just...
There's tough sometimes, and then there's 2.5 years of tough.
Exactly. We just have to be a little bit more, realistic and also not be so hard on ourselves. One of the big things of making the last record was how deeply unself-confident we were. You know, we got to a stage and we had so little collective self-confidence, and it's crazy.
It was the worst it had been. It was like the weirdest bit about the whole thing was like it had never happened. It was like it had never happened.
Yeah.
It was like there was a funeral, there was a wake, and we all were grieving, and God knows what was going on. It was stupid.
And we didn't trust in the process. We've got to trust more in that it'll be okay. You know, we're just working through something. It's not, we've got to trust that we've done some good stuff in the past, that good stuff will still come. And we beat ourselves up about it. Like, can we do it this time? Are we relevant? Are we too old? Should we be doing this together? We've been doing this for 20 years.
Age was a problem.
Yeah, we've got kids. We had kids. You put the family thing into it, and you're trying to find how it all works out. Can I still be a good dad and put the hours in at the studio? Something has to give.
One of the other highlights of this year was Portishead bringing out a record and just thinking, yay, we're not alone. Hurrah!
And it's great, so...
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but the songs that you write, see, this is the thing that a lot of people would think, okay, they're very whatever, even morose, whatever. They're actually not.
No,
I mean, you might confront sort of some painful things. It might be a struggle, and you try to overcome the struggle. But they're very positive songs. Do you think people miss that?
Point. Well, especially this one.
Yeah.
That's why, there's another reason why I didn't, when we were coming to the end of it, my worst nightmare was having gone through this sort of thing and made a piece of music, 40 minutes of music that we felt was really positive, and have it reduced to the usual stereotype black and white etching of what we are like. Of course, we don't help ourselves by talking about how difficult it is. But anyway, it would have been just a bummer, man. It would be much better just to put it out and sort of, you decide, and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't just about the money, it was about the, please, you decide. Don't listen to all these tossings.
Yeah.
You have a listen to it yourself.
And are you surprised by what you're able to come up with? And do you see that surprise as that's a result? I'm surprised and I'm pleased. As in, I never thought that was going to be... Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the whole kind of point is
Sorry, am I looking
The whole kind of point is that you're surprised. The whole point is you start like body snatchers. Like it was in a particularly peculiar frame of mind that afternoon, and you listen back to it, you think, what?
Yeah.
Where were we on? What was going on?
Incidentally, Tom, you mentioned Nigel Godrich as in producer, right? Okay, that's fine. But like, he wasn't the producer of this album at first. When you got these songs together, were they already all together with somebody else? And you brought them to Nigel, and were they so together that he couldn't Nigel them?
No. Oh no, they were Nigeled.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah. Were they Nigeled? Yeah.
Yeah, because we just lost our way completely.
That's pretty scary.
Yes, it was.
Can you not work without him then?
No.
Okay, let's put it this way: is your solo album a solo album, or is it you and Nigel?
Yes, me and Nigel, absolutely.
Yes, it's not a solo.
because no, exactly, because it's it's that thing of given the choice, I would never finish anything myself personally.
It's true.
So you can't work alone?
Well, it depends if you want me to finish anything or not.
So do you think in some ways now, just to finally on that whole thing, that you have opened a whole new virtual world? Like the virtual store is now open for business?
No.
No?
No,
it's
no,
the
no.
First, what is it? It's like man going on the moon, but the next time he does it is 50 years later. Like, hold on a second, that's a good first step, but this is not necessarily the model.
It was our response to what what was going on. Do we, A, go back into the system as it stands, take a wad of cash and admit defeat, or whatever you want to call it, or do we go along with the way things are, given the fact that so much of the Radiohead sort of fan base is on the net and very active, and we've always really sort of enjoyed that element of things. It wasn't that hard a choice, really.
No. I think as well, there's the feeling that what's great about it is that ability to change and move. The problem with a record contract per se is that, if you're signed for 6 records, that framework stays with you, and it's very different. That band that starts is very different from the band sort of 10 years later. So the things that you have to do don't necessarily sit comfortably with you. We found that, after OK Computer, Kid A, we didn't want to do interviews. We didn't really. We'd sort of stepped into that world, and we didn't feel comfortable with it. We were trying to find something else. So what's great about this way is that it was just a response then, and when we bring out our next record, it will be something different.
But the thing about it is also, like, if for example, now that we're sort of writing songs at the moment, if we were thinking to ourselves, well, is this another one in 6 records, or this is, if we weren't stimulated by the idea of how it could come out, or how it could like how it would be put up, if we weren't stimulated by the whole process, we wouldn't carry on, because there's no point. If it was like, we are the little creative people in the box, thank you very much, we give you our missive, at the end of it you say thank you very much, you write a cheque, you send them away. We can't do that. There's no point in us carry on if that's the way things are.
Sure, but does it have to be the way it is? Does it have to be always some kind of like, approaching acting like the method acting kind of way, and have to be kind of some sort of torturous route? I mean, like some of the times that you've mentioned of music that you've liked the most, Ed, is going back to early 90s and that whole rave scene, and you've described a few things that you were at, be it Happy Mondays here, or be it Stone Roses there, and everything else in between, and just to get out there and do it and get by in a funky rhythm. It takes too long to do it.
I think that
party.
Yeah, but you see, they're not working in a vacuum. We were in the past few years, we've been working in a vacuum. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
They're part of a scene. We're not part of anything. We're bloody,
But you were never part of anything.
No,
even when
true.
you might have been dragged into Britpop, when Creep was becoming big, you were over in the States doing stuff, and you missed all that.
I know,
luckily for you.
but OK Computer, the Bends was our response to Britpop, completely.
Yeah.
And OK Computer was our response to hanging out with REM on tour, And and Kid A and Amnesiac was a response to my utter obsession with everything that didn't involve guitars. Hail to the Thief was not as much a response to things musically, and then by the time we got to this, we felt completely isolated.
Well, Hail to the Thief was also, at the time, that was an attempt to make a record where we all got on. And it was harmonious. The problem with that record, I think we feel is, or personally and some of us do, is that it wasn't edited very well.
No, we didn't spend enough time.
We didn't spend enough time. So you get to a stage when everybody gets on fine, but then you have to edit it, and that's when disagreement comes, because you all have different opinions. So we didn't go there.
Well, if you say it wasn't edited very well, are we saying then look back, say, on Kid A and say, that's an album you listen to like a classical piece from beginning to end. If you do that, you get it, because that's how we made it.
Yeah.
Whereas, what are you saying about edited Hail to the Thief? Are you saying that songs were too disparately all over the place?
Musically, and we didn't, you know, there are too many songs on the record anyway. We didn't get to that stage. You know, it's, you have to like hone away at something. Like with that In Rainbows, the last month and a half was really honing it down. You know, finishing something.
Yeah, that was a right laugh, that was.
He loves that part, as you can tell, the making of the record.
Yeah.
But that's when Nigel is so good. And I think collectively, we collected, the five of us sort of rode roughshod over Nigel on Hail to the Thief and said, no, it's done, it sounds great, it's alive, it's got a vibe and stuff like that. But that's not good enough for making a record, you know. That's where Nigel's so good, he understands. You know, you've got to put in the little work. It needs editing. It needs a bit of extra stuff on it.
But Thom, like, what about other things you do outside Radiohead? Like, I mean, Friends of the Earth stuff and loads of things. When you get involved in these things, do you know people are going to throw stuff out saying, what's a bloody rock star getting involved in this stuff for?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
And is it difficult? I mean, is it like, do you feel as though if you don't give it 24 hours a day, which obviously you can't, that therefore somewhere you're probably failing? That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Are you talking about music stuff or
no? I'm talking
political
about
stuff.
Extracurricular stuff outside music, where some people would listen to you because of who you are, be it a kind of an Amnesty or Friends of the Earth or eco-friendly living.
The Friends of the Earth thing that's been a particularly tough one because
that's the Big Ash campaign.
Yeah, the big ask.
Yeah.
Which you know, hopefully is going to come to fruition. Hopefully, the British government, despite everything else they're doing, are about to pass a law which commits us to reducing carbon emissions by, you know, 90% by 2050, which would be pretty radical. But I was, what would they called me the special representative of the campaign, which, you know, it was a bit of a...
Did they ask you the term? Did you?
No, they came up with that. I was like, yeah, whatever. But because they told me that, and then they told me it was the big ask. But anyway, yeah, that was a hard thing to do because that was very political. Because Friends of the Earth are very stuck inside the Commons, lobbying and all that sort of stuff, and it's a bit sort of woo. But it was equally, I find that element of things really fascinating. But it was very stressful, and initially, especially because, you know, in some ways the last person on earth who needs to be talking about this stuff is a rock star. But for some reason they thought that was a good idea. And I can kind of understand why they did now.
See, the big song from that solo album is a song that you were enraged about something that happened, that the British government could allow somebody to be driven to suicide.
Yeah,
Harrowdown Hill.
I wouldn't say exactly enraged, more haunted by the idea. I just found it, the anger was sort of a fairly pointless thing, really. I found it deeply sinister and alarming that had happened, regardless of whether he did it to himself or it was done to him. And deeply sinister the way that the government used to deal with his family, and under the circumstances, so on. And the anger, I think, was much more about the general sort of what the country was up to going into Iraq.
And you referred to Thom's kind of political whatever earlier on as though it was Thom's. Do you go along with the stuff that he does or what he says? Or is there any times, like I'm sure like Adam Clayton might sit there going, my God, Bono's not doing that, is he? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. I mean, to be honest, we probably think quite similarly on a lot of things. And
implying that some of the other members of the band don't?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a good dialogue. And I had a good one on the plane with Colin just now, you know. So we disagree, and it's good. It's really important to disagree. So we've read a lot of the same books, and you're probably asking the wrong guy. You should be.
Well, when these things come up, like the Friends of the Earth thing, when I chose to do that, I said, look, I will take full responsibility for this. At no point am I going to make anybody who doesn't want to get. Doesn't want to, you know, this is my problem, sort of thing, you know. But at the same time, when we chose to start touring, I came and chose to do a tour again, which I initially didn't want to do at all because of the environmental thing. Everything was, I brought a whole load of some big heavy bags with me to the meetings about all that sort of stuff. And to varying degrees, people are happy to go along with it or not.
Okay, well, just one last on the music. What does happen? I think I might have referred to this earlier on, but like when you see Pablo Honey going to the Bends, going to OK Computer, going to Kid A, going to Amnesiac, Hail to the Thief, In Rainbows, any idea for because I mean, I simply wouldn't.
I got there's a pretty nifty sort of mid-70s dance track that we could finish when we get a moment, which is not right now.
Okay, well, I look forward to a mid-70s dance track from Radiohead. Ed and Thom, thanks a million for talking to us. Thanks very much, Ed.
Thank you,
Thanks very
Dave.
much.